Right now. Hi.
Okay.
I'm going to start admitting everyone.
Cool.
Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Hi.
We're here Thursday night with Artfare's weekly studio visit, live, virtual interview, all the things. Some really nice conversations that we have with a lot of Artfare artists over the past few months. And tonight, no exception, we have Natalie Baxter.
Hi. Hello.
Welcome. While folks are still coming in here, I'm going to keep admitting that we are really excited to have you. You're in your studio.
Yes, I'm in my studio.
Yeah.
I know I've been in and out of this space a little bit during COVID. Sometimes working from home a little bit, but I'm here now, so that's nice.
Right. Yeah, and were you in Brooklyn for most of the parts of the lockdown or quarantine since March?
Yeah, we were mostly in town. We did sneak away to Connecticut for a couple weeks to a friend had an empty house up there, so we took advantage of that. That was very nice. But mostly, yeah, we've been just living. It's weird, you know.
Yeah.
It's a weird time. But yeah, in the beginning, I was staying away from my studio just because there was so many unknowns, and I don't know, didn't want to mix with all the people here. So I did like work from home and brought material back, but then, working from home has its own challenges, and it's
Right. I think I remember seeing something on the social medias where you had your sewing machine just on the kitchen table for a while.
Yeah, I made a lot of masks, like over 300 masks in the beginning.
Oh, right.
And I was from a kitchen table. So that was, yeah, that was like, it seems like a lifetime ago, right? The early days. But also, roller coaster comes back in weird ways. But I'm in my studio now.
How much were those masks valued at? I mean, how much were the masks you were making? Were you making any money on them?
They were free. So if anybody requested one, then I happily mailed them one. I did a few exchanges, like artists would mail me a little piece of art or a drawing, or some people would Venmo me some money, which was really nice. And so they didn't have a price tag on them, but I did get some money and some art from them. So that was fun. And I spent this morning making more masks because people needed some. Let's see. I'll show you my mask.
Yes, please. I know that there were a couple folks I saw recently, and I could tell, hey, is that a Natalie Baxter mask? Because you have a telltale, recognizable part of your mask. Can you show that off?
Yeah, Josh and I were my husband and I were driving, and somebody walked in front of our car, like in our neighborhood, and we're like, oh, I made that mask. Like, I don't know that person, but I made that mask. Yeah, but this fabric, this artist Heather Garland gave me this fabric. So pretty. Isn't that nice? But yeah, I've been using, I didn't have elastic, so I've been using like different spandex material that I had to make straps. So usually, if you see the little pink strap, it's usually a mask that I made.
And all of them have the pink straps then, because I don't think I've ever seen a Natalie Baxter mask without that pink spandex.
Yeah, a lot of them do. Some of them I've used like this shiny purple before. This is all just stuff that I already had, material that I already had around here. Obviously, I have a lot of fabric.
You were able to repurpose some of your scraps and things from the Warm Gun series and other series of the all caps and otherwise as well, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And we can talk more about that.
Yeah. Well, behind you then, it's kind of your makeshift storage for all your materials, different than a palette. You've got all these fantastic really varied fibers going on there. And I know that you work with different types of fabrics too. Can you talk to us a little bit about where you find all your fabric?
Yeah, so a lot of them, I used to go to the garment district. I really miss going to the garment district in like 38, 39, 40, between 8th and ninth is kind of this wonderful zone of fabrics in New York where you could go and like touch them and feel them, but obviously I haven't done that since COVID. So I've been doing a little bit of eBay. Like a lot of people I think are going through their old stuff that's like around their house. Here, I'll zoom out a little bit. And so I got this one. Actually, I can't remember if I got this during COVID or not, but this is an old quilt top. So sometimes I'll use old quilt tops that I find like on eBay and stuff. So for those of you who don't know about quilting, this is like the top layer of a quilt. So this is all pieced. I think this was maybe this was like hand pieced, probably a mixture of both, hand and machine. But then, so see, there's the back like this. So that's all the pieces that are kind of quilted together or patchwork together, I guess. And then you would use batting, makes it like the warm layer, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, it's like a sandwich. So then you would use like a batting that keeps you warm, and then a back layer that's usually just like a single sheet, like a solid piece, and then you quilt them all together. So that technique is used a lot in my work. And I will use quilt tops sometimes to make guns. Like this one's made from a quilt top.
What's that one called?
I actually don't know what this one's called. I have it somewhere in a file.
It's precisely the size that I love, as you could see.
Oh yeah.
I love that gun so much, and as you've heard stories about how I sleep with it almost as a pillow.
Yeah, I love that.
The idea of the gun, I'd love to talk about a little further, because you really became more notable with your practice with the Warm Gun series. And, maybe it was 4 years ago or something, you had a show. If you could talk a little bit about the aftermath of the show, I'd be really interested in helping our audience understand a little bit more about kind of the not only the aftermath, but the type of attitude that the South gave you after presenting these limp guns.
Yeah. Or wait, which show are you talking about?
The
show work in general?
Yeah, the work in general, but also, when you presented the work and you got the write-up and all the started coming, which led you to your next body of work. But
yeah.
I wanted to get a little source of the inspiration for the Warm Gun series and how you began to ideate around the idea of these soft sculptures.
Yeah. So this gun series that I've been making, like you said, for 4 or 5 years, is kind of this like ongoing series of like soft, droopy, different kinds of assault rifles and guns. This one's also a quilt top. This is a double wedding band quilt. Yeah. Anyway, so my background, I'm from Kentucky originally, and I went to undergrad in Tennessee, this school called Sewanee, the University of the South, and then I went to graduate school at the University of Kentucky in my hometown. And in school, I never did anything with fabric. My grandmother is from Eastern Kentucky, and she was a really big quilter and a sewer, and she used to kind of do little sewing projects or quilting projects for people who lived in her community. And so she taught me how to quilt when I was in college. I did a lot of video and photo work, so I actually was doing a video project on women in Eastern Kentucky, which is kind of like a rural Appalachian area. And so I was doing this video work, but then I wanted to learn how to quilt from her. So So it was never part of my work at that point, but it also, it made sense that that video work about her and about women in the area kind of led to me then working, in my mind at least, it makes sense, working with fabric. So I then moved to New York after graduate school, and I worked at a film school. I worked at in television and film. I worked for CBS on a documentary show. And when I was doing that work, I was like, it made sense because I had done a lot of video art and then kind of went into documentary. I was like, okay, I'll try to like get a job in film. But I missed making stuff. I missed like finishing something very quickly, because when you are working on a film, it takes forever, and you're not like in total control. You know, you have this team of people that are working on it with you, which is good, but I wanted to just make something and finish it. So anyway, so I picked up a quilt that my grandmother had started to make but never finished, and I just started quilting, just, you know, sitting watching TV, and started quilting. And then I went home to Kentucky, and this was I think this was like 2014 or 2015, and there was a lot. I mean, there's always been a lot of mass shootings. Actually, I think when I was in high school was when Columbine happened. So it's kind of like always there, these mass shooting events and these like gun violence things. But it was leading up to the election year, so they were very hot in the press. It was a very hot button issue. And it was also being handled in the press differently than it is now. It was more like sensationalized and more like, just a lot, I guess. Like now the media has gotten more savvy to how to delicately handle gun violence situations, like not making the killer this kind of celebrity person, you know what I mean? Absolutely. Anyway, so I was back in Kentucky, and I was at a friend's house that had like small handguns on his wall, just like displayed, and I was thinking like, oh, this is not something, like I'd lived in New York a couple years at that point. I was like, you don't ever see this in like someone's apartment in New York. So I started thinking culturally about what guns, like the role that they play in America, and also just why we're this country that is so obsessed with guns and has so many people die from guns, and why, like, what is it about these weapons and what's about our country too. So I had started quilting, and I was like, oh, I wonder what like a wall of stuffed quilted guns would look like. So I kind of like went home immediately and started making a few, and kind of did like obsessively made a lot before like showing them, and while I was making them, I was kind of like thinking about what it is that I'm doing by taking this weapon that's like hard and metal and, you know, heavy and sort of like this masculine object, and what am I doing by turning that into a soft fabric, very like colorful, oftentimes like pinks and golds and like flashy fabrics. And I was thinking about, and as I was thinking about this, more shootings were happening mostly at the hands of men, and I was like, what is up with this like weird male aggression with gun violence? And yeah, so I started making them like longer and droopier, and kind of exploring these issues of gender and gun ownership and masculinity, and actually like connected with a psychologist who was doing a lot of research. Her name's Jennifer Carlson. Yeah, Jennifer Carlson, pretty sure. And she was quoted in this article that was like, America's gun problem has everything to do with America's masculinity problem. And I was like, kind of read that article, was like, oh, this is exactly what I'm trying to explore with this. I actually kind of met up with her, and she's in Arizona, and she ended up like flying me out to be a part of this conference, which was cool.
Oh, that's fantastic. Who were you speaking to when you were
It was I guess it was open to the public, but it was a bunch of really academic like a variety of, like a doctor that was talking about like trauma and gun violence in communities, and then like who else was there? I was the only artist. It was like psychologists or sociologists or yeah, kind of like I was on a panel discussion. It was a couple years ago. I'm trying to think now. It was in Tucson, Arizona. And so I like put up some of my work and like gave a little talk about it. It was really interesting to have that discussion.
Yeah, but all of a sudden you guys are on the same wavelength, and then the concepts became so meaty. There's so many different avenues of well, just thoughts in tandem you could go in relationship to. You were talking about masculinity or rigidity or the steel of the gun and the tenseness, or the gun in the hands of a man, and masculinity, and yet you're making these soft sculptures from what is traditionally a craft of a woman's craft, whether it be quilting or sewing, and yet you're also making them softer and otherwise limp. Suppose
Yeah.
taking that masculinity out of the jocularness of shooting a gun, holding a gun, owning.
Yeah.
I realize there's great fanatics for the Second Amendment and those rights that even enjoy these works. Is that correct?
Yeah. What I'm interested in, like how you were saying, how you like cuddle with yours like it's like a body pillow, you know, like sleep with it, like this weird comfort that we have with these objects, and kind of like stripping them of that, like, or just like pulling them down to the root of what it is that our country has this like comfort and fascination with them. But I was thinking about something when you said that. Oh, but yeah, what I'm interested in is like not being so guns are bad. They're like, you know, like I am like emasculating the gun, but I'm also like using humor and this kind of like lightheartedness, because they're also like the same material that you would make a kid's stuffed animal out of. You know, there's this humor element that I think that because you enter into this discussion in this lighthearted way, that you're then able to have these bigger picture like issues. And a story I tell a lot about that is I had a show in Kentucky in my hometown in this gallery, Institute 193, and there was like two women in the gallery space when I was in there, and they didn't know that I was the artist. And I don't know if they like, I think they like walked by and saw the show and like popped in, I think. And they were like, "Oh, these are so cute. These are so like funny. I love, like, oh, look at these fabrics, you know. These are so cute," or whatever. And then like one woman turned to the other one and was like, "Well, you know, like I live on a farm. I have a gun. I think that I should be able to have a gun." And the other woman was like, "Well, we don't need these assault rifles." Like, it was like, because you're entering in through this lens of a cuddly, soft object, that you're able to kind of have a conversation that's a little bit, that's been like proven very difficult to have in this country. And I think like it's only gotten worse. Like I was thinking about these topics leading up to President Trump's election, and I think it's only gotten worse. And I think that it's good to try to make work as an artist, to make work that can kind of have these conversations, that's not like preaching to the choir of, I feel this way, isn't it so ridiculous, like you need to feel this way too. Like we need to like kind of bridge these divides, or like make art as this way that can do that, if that makes sense. So that's what I strive to do with.
Yeah, I think it does instigate conversation. I mean, it instigates a lot of feelings from folks, and whether folks are just like, you know, I've seen those guns. Those guns are those guns are great. You know, what else do you do? Or maybe someone is like, oh, there's that lady that like emasculates those guns. Or
Yeah.
oh, there's Natalie Baxter. Yeah, she's like basically making toy guns, like
Yeah.
advocating for toys for children.
Yeah.
Guns, egad. You know what I mean? You've got a lot of layers to kind of unravel there, where it does instigate a conversation, and it is also a fun and playful object, which is one of my favorite things about it. But I also wanted to just address some of the heat or bullying that you also got online based on a show that you had. Was it in Kentucky?
So it was from an article. So, okay, I don't remember what, I think it must have been, okay, so I got some press about the gun series and like my work in general that was in the Huffington Post. So that there was like a kind of positive review about my work in Huffington Post, and then and a few other like news sites. And I was kind of thinking like, okay, like bracing myself, like I know there's going to be some kind of negative article or whatever. And so one day somebody emailed me, they're like, have you seen this? And I was like, no. And like read this article. The title of it I think is like feminist artist takes on toxic masculinity with gun sculptures, and it was in The Blaze, which is Glenn Beck's like news and entertainment website. So that article was very negative about like me and my work, and it kind of picked apart the Huffington Post article and like pulled stuff from it. Like I think in the Huffington Post article I talked about like my grandmother owning guns and kind of this like relationship to yeah, anyway, in the article they were like Natalie doesn't have a problem with women owning guns, it's just men. Like kind of like I was this man hating, you know, feminist person. And so the article was bad, which was fine, but then the comments, you know, that everyone's always like, don't read the comments of articles or like on social media. But I read the comments, and there was like 95 comments, and a lot of them were very angry, very, it was like the same thing that I was exploring of this like masculine energy, negative masculine energy that I was exploring with the gun stuff was coming out in the comments. So some of them were like, this is just a feminazi with like no brain, or what was it? Yeah, something like not smart feminazi person, or this tard is out of her freaking mind. And then one that was, I can show you, because I've made like 4 or 5 of these different ones. This kind of like sums it up. Is clearly confused about her role as a woman. Let me move these guys. So these are, I made these banners out of them. So these are kind of echoing suffragist banners. So like banners that you would make for a protest, and that were made by women like over 100 years ago. I think this year or last year. No, this year. That was women fighting for the right to vote and for equality. So it's kind of like this same fight. I'll show you some. This is another one. It says, this chick needs a good railing. So that's another one of them. I only have 3 in my studio right now. This one, libtard. So I took some of the words like libtard and feminazi and made pieces. Another one, a banner that I made. Oh, I could show you on the screen sharing. I'll do that. Was let me see. Another one was, oh, did that work?
No, we just see Natalie Baxter right now, but.
Oh, wait. Can you see my screen now?
No.
Oh.
Because I did make you a co-host.
Well, oh. Entire screen. Well, anyway, I can just read you some of them, and you guys can find them on my website. They're called alt caps. So one of them, I made a big banner that says like soft-headed snowflake, nothing more than psychobabble bullshit.
You unmute your video, Natalie, because we want to see you in your studio.
Oh, is it gone? Whoops. Okay. Yeah, anyway, so, oh, demon crats just want to be sluts. That's another one that I thought was kind of funny. Anyway, so I took those comments and turned them into these banners that then I did a few shows where, one at the Elijah Reed showroom in Brooklyn, where I did, I would display the guns along with the comments. So kind of like these two things interacting with each other. So those were pretty fun to do.
And the work, they go so well together in relationship to the story that you are able to relay. You know, I made these and this was the reaction, and I kind of took that whole idea of bullying online or degradation online, and I owned it, and I made these fantastic banners in reference to the suffragists, and here you go, here they are. And I noticed that, you know, in years past, individuals are more prone towards using those hate comments and making the lemonade out of them. There's a handful of little TikTok users that get trolled, or there are just other instances where I think that it's not as damaging as maybe it once was when we were first kind of exploring the interaction online, where no one can really see your face, you're hiding behind the screen with all those hate comments. But it was nice that they were put together in such a way that you've got a lot of this work in different private collections, and you've had work in different museums or galleries in relationship to both United States and abroad. And so I think that that's a real strong testament to the fact that they are reaching a critical conversation, and folks are understanding the importance for now, both as you are do you define yourself as a feminist?
Yeah. Who's not a feminist?
I mean, the work is also really feminist, so it's fascinating to me that the Huffington Post article took that stance, that it was mostly about feminism opposed to, you know, other.
No, that was the title of the Blaze article.
Pardon.
Yeah.
So they
like it was pretty much like the gist of it was like, look at this crazy artist in Brooklyn making gun sculptures. Isn't this so ridiculous? That was kind of the gist.
Right. But then, you know, because you do have very adept skills, you're a prolific maker, you've got new work coming up all the time. You began creating other objects in self-sculptures or like wall reliefs and other things. Can you talk maybe a little bit about moving on from banners and guns maybe to the flags or objects?
Yeah, I can show you part of the other studio. Here's a big flag. So I've made this series of bloated flags, and actually I did this series of gold ones. Let's see. There's one of the gold flags. So this is from a series called Bloated Flags. Let's see. Here's a few more. There's one. These actually started making during quarantine, was these like slices of flags. Those were kind of fun. And then some more over here, or this one in the corner. So those were also, it was like the summer before the last presidential election, and I was thinking about just like what America, what this symbol. Actually, no, I started thinking about flags after the Charleston shooting sparked like a debate over the Confederate flag and how different states were reacting to it, and how like just like I have a friend in Tennessee who texted me, it was like 9 a.m. and she was like, I've seen 6 Confederate flags already this morning. Like, how many have you seen? You know, like this the power of these symbols of flags. I was thinking about like what the American flag is with like what does that mean in this age of Trump to different people, and what does it mean pretty much when any president is in power, like how the symbol of the flag can hold this like patriotic, I guessness, or this like people like around the 4th of July, a friend of mine texted me, was like, I want to put an American flag out front of my house for the 4th of July, but I don't want people to think I'm a Trump supporter. And how like that the flag takes on these like different feelings of being prideful or being shameful or fear. So I kind of made these puffy versions of the American flag and all these different materials to kind of show this like the like weight of them, but also the like filled with like fluffness. Yeah, just. And then I was making these while I was at a residency, and this woman who was doing studio visits was like, I was making a gold one, and she was like, you need to be careful because people will think that you're making a Trump flag. And I thought that comment was so interesting because I had just told her all about the gun stuff, the gun work, and how I was trying to kind of like bridge these different political views with the work. And the fact that she was like, this was before Trump was elected, but she was like, people think you're making a Trump flag, and like you don't want them to think that. But at the time, like obviously Trump was elected, so a lot of people do like him. And I just thought that comment was interesting, so I wanted to create this series of flags that were gold, and so I call them all people will think you're making a Trump flag, like 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have done, I don't know, maybe 15 of these gold ones, or actually more than that probably. But yeah, so, and that also, I would display that with like a gold flag in some of those shows that I had with the comment pieces, the text pieces, and the guns, as kind of this like, this is this America that we are in right now. This is sort of Trump's America, because I think that a lot of this rhetoric too became normalized because the people in power say stuff that makes it okay for other people to feel that they can say other things. But also it's just people on the internet, like there's women being attacked on the internet at this very second. Mm-hmm. There's people being attacked on the internet at this very second. It's like, I am nobody special for being told like that I'm a feminazi on the internet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you bring up so many good points. Yet the idea that because the country is so bifurcated in relationship to the personal belief systems, and there's all this social strife over the politics in relation to morality, in relationship to sociology, but also, this allegiance to this in the office right now. And it is fascinating that the flag that stands for the Revolutionary War, albeit breaking away from the colonialist rule. I know we enacted as well as Americans, yet coming in, breaking away from the British, and having that flag feels like that's all of ours, and I know that we're all steeped in history of the United States, yet if I want to wear a red hat right now, I'm grocery shopping. And I kind of feel it's the same way as a flag. Like, I want to wear American flag on my lapel, and a lot of the times I am American is when I'm outside the country, and I'm not so sure when that's going to happen again, but the times I am American is when I'm outside the country, not so much inside the country, because it does feel, and certainly we could talk about this forever, that it is so divided, yet the flag is it stands as a symbol of unity of all of the states.
Yeah.
It's become this, it's only for the right. Or so anyway, I really appreciate the fact that you're trying to take the flag back in some ways, and in other ways, the metaphor.
I started doing these patchwork ones that were, it's kind of like this this like patchwork of lots of different materials to then create this flag. Can't get the computer right. Yeah, you see. Yeah.
And also the fact that it's bloated, it feels like that as a perfect metaphor for kind of the cushion that's around the ability to feel denigrate marginalized people, or
Yeah.
towards this protection of white supremacy or otherwise. Hey, I'm reading into it, but
Yeah, I've had a lot of interesting actually, Johanna Herr, who is also on Artfare,
yes.
she brought in her, I think it was her NYU student, or Parsons. She teaches at NYU in Parsons. She brought her students in here, and it was interesting here. They came from a lot of different backgrounds. I think there was like a lot of Puerto Rican Americans, and and they were talking about how, like, I was just like, what does the flag mean to you guys? And a lot of them were like, it's kind of scary. It kind of scares me, like just the symbol of the flag, or like it's kind of like, yeah, it was an interesting conversation I had with them. That 18-year-olds that
Right,
was
because I've only really known the flag to be this kind of, well, it's not so much dividing, but it does have a certain place in.
loaded. Yes.
Mhm. Yeah, it's great that you also reference the Confederate flag in relationship to those years ago, and now that the flag is slowly but surely working out of the everyday pride of those Confederates and so on. Yet the flag itself, as you're making them, you adding these embellishments, the kind of dangles, you're making it kind of fun as well. Do you intend for these pieces to only be on the wall, or like could I use it as a pillow? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe when
I
it comes to
did.
textiles, I feel like there's fair game when it,
Yeah. You can use, actually no, I have made a giant I did make a giant, or two giant ones. They're both up in my like storage thing up there, but one of them I kind of laid out onto a bed at some point, so you could kind of like lounge on this flag. And then I made like a giant gold one that kind of drapes, like it was just at a show at Allegheny University, and it's been in a couple shows, but where it was kind of like draped over a pedestal, so it kind of looked like it was like lounging or like wounded, I don't know. So that it's been fun to play with that one. And then I made one for the Wasaic project a couple summers ago. So they have a huge exhibition space that it hung in sections. It's in our living room right now, like hanging from the ceiling. But it's like a piece in 5 sections, and it's called Severed and Growing. So that one was kind of, maybe we could show a picture of it. I don't know. Maybe the screen sharing thing doesn't work.
your screen, yeah, you just kind of go to your desktop when you press desktop 1, and then you just pull up whatever is there.
Let's see. Oh, I think this is gonna work. Oh, is it working? I think so. Or can you see it?
Yeah, looks good.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, this is a twisted one that I made like right after Trump was elected. It's called America Current Mood. That one's pretty big. That one's going to Alabama Contemporary Art Center for a show. I think it's down here at the bottom. Sorry. Oh yeah. So this guy, can everybody see this?
Yeah.
Can you? Yeah. Okay. So this one it's like mostly red patchwork on one side and mostly blue patchwork on the other side, and it's cut almost like how you'd cut a tree and see like the little rings of the tree. It's like mostly, or it's after the Benjamin Franklin. This image that then has been used in a lot of other contexts, but it was originally a Benjamin Franklin like political cartoon. You know, the snake that's cut up. It says "Join or Die." So it's kind of like roughly based off of that. It's called Severed and Growing. So it's kind of like, is this flag growing together or is it growing apart?
The works that you're presenting, you you've got these series of works with the warm guns, the alt caps, and all these bloated flags. Uh,
Yeah, it's the alt caps ones.
yeah, and it's kind
Yeah.
of like, when you find something that you enjoy making, that folks talk about and enjoy seeing, then you have to turn your video back on.
Sorry, I was looking for that button.
You really kind of run away, and as I mentioned, you're kind of prolific when you're continuing to make the same iteration, invention of these objects. And I wonder whether or not you consider, just as you had considered this flag that was hung over, kind of exhausted and unable to move, or how you described it, do you think the presentation of some of these works, because they are fabric and soft sculptures, they must have this incredible way of having different meaning based on the presentation? So say guns aren't hung on the wall and the guns aren't hanging from the ceiling, the guns may be piled in the floor, or the flag is draped over a couch, or the flag is segmented otherwise. And I just wonder if you have considered larger scale installations besides just creating these piece by piece.
Yeah, I've done a few like larger installation pieces, but I'd love to do more kind of like less like white wall gallery things, and more immersive. That's kind of what I hope to do this fall, is to kind of create more of an environment, which I think it seems like a lot of work and like kind of a good challenge. And yeah, I need to actually, well, who knows what the fall will be like in terms of
What
art.
will the fall bring? I do think that the idea of installation would be telltale to a private experience that could be absolutely curtailed, the social distancing problem and all of the things where, by appointment, like think of a Kusama room, think of a Douglas as you're allowed in by appointments. I suppose that's where a lot of the galleries are going. I don't know whether or not we'll ever have fairs again until the and herd immunity is acquired, but yet it does seem as if installation would be an ideal place with by appointments and otherwise. I really wish you luck with that one.
Yeah, I got a Queen's Art Fund grant for this year, and my plan is to have a show at Gloria's Project Space in Ridgewood in November is the plan. We'll see what happens, but I think that is a good space for me to. I'm working on this new series of work which I could talk about if you want.
Yes,
but yeah, so it has to do with house coats, which do you know what's like a house coat? Okay, so these are kind of like ones that I started to make. I'm actually like scrapping all of these, but I've started thinking about house coats in which is kind of like a robe that you would wear. So for me, my grandmother would always wear a house coat around. She's like a big gardener, or was a big like gardener and like quilter. So she'd be staying at home, and it's kind of like this jacket you would put on as I see it as like women's workwear, women's homeward wear, homewrecker wear. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So they usually have like a collar, and these are ones that I made. Actually, let me talk about them first. I'm actually not I'm not happy with these. I'm gonna like scrap them, but this is the evolution of the process. But so I just had a kid a year ago, a baby girl, Petra, and so I was like home with her a lot, and also just like breastfeeding, and like in all these like you're like kind of like half naked or like in a robe all the time, and just like you're like you have to have be accessible to this child. So I started thinking about like being at home and being like being a caregiver and like, I guess stay-at-home mom is what people say, but caring for a child and thinking about like this house coat as this like workwear for working around the home. So I also was thinking with these pieces that I like stretched over a canvas, was thinking about like painting and how like that is automatically seen as art. Like something I often have, a conversation I often have about my work is this like line between craft and art, because I'm using all these craft skills to create art, you know? And what does that mean? Like, why is a quilt? Yeah, this is what got it started. I started quilting a lot. Like I made some quilts for my nieces and nephews, and I was like, I had so much fun with it. Like I loved quilting, and I was like, why is this not art? Like I was very like cautious of being like, this is my craft that I'm doing. This isn't my work. This is just a thing that I'm making for my niece or nephew, because it was functional, I guess, is what like I started thinking about like why, if I was a painter and I just made a few little paintings, those would be studies, and there would be no question as to whether or not they were art, and they could be sold as art, and they would be viewed as art, and there's no question about that. But I work in fabric, and I make art with fabric and soft sculpture, and here I am making these quilts, and I like didn't think of them as art, and neither does really the rest of the world. So anyway, I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about these house coats, and I tried to kind of marry the two by creating these like house coat paintings. So, but I'm just not happy with them. I made like 2 of them, or they're not even finished, but I started to make 2 of them.
They're like on a canvas, on a relief, or as a relief, or are they
Stretcher bars?
They're on a stretcher. So
yeah,
they're non-functional, representing
like this. See?
Yes.
But anyway, I made these, and you know, it took forever to make those, and then decided I want to make actual house coats. Like I want to make sculptures of giant house coats. So I bought.
You know, Natalie, it's not so much different. I mean, I think this conversation has been, you know, a long-standing conversation when it comes to ceramicists, workers, textiles folks. But the fact is, just because it's functional doesn't make it not art, right? Design and art have to work very well together. It's just a matter of also who's making it, and sometimes the kind of pejorative understanding that the ceramics and jewelry or metals and fabrics have been women's work. So there's a slight twist there when it comes to why the rest of the world thinks that it's not art. Also, being able to explain something conceptually without function, that's a privilege. That's a privilege to be able to create work that's just about ideas. And
and it's what?
Yeah, in this world. But you were showing us some really cool patterns from the 70s.
Oh, yeah. So I bought some of these on eBay that are like
nice.
Actual patterns for house coats. Turns out patterns are like really difficult to do. I don't know if you've ever tried to make something from a pattern, but I think it's very hard. But I also don't like measure stuff, and I'm not very skilled with the.
So precise. It's genuinely the centimeter, the millimeter, the smallest little notion of the cut has to be straight, the seam of it, all of the, yes.
Yes, I want to create these oversized, pretty much I want to create an installation of like a closet of these house coats. And I'm playing around with different materials like you see on the wall. You know these bathing suit shirts that you get?
I was putting some of those earlier. I was really hoping you would talk about them. I was going to spring a question on you towards the end, so thanks.
Yeah. So these like shirts that you put over your bathing suit, but it's kind of like this, like I like this idea of like putting on these like performative or different kind of layers of like being a woman who, you know, I don't know. I'm still kind of like figuring it out. And I think with the pandemic, it's also added this extra layer of like leisure wear. Like now everybody is, a lot of people are at home. And if you're at home, you're kind of privileged to be able to do that, to be able to like to work from home. So there's this, like I saw these as not, I didn't see these as privilege really, as like house coats. I saw them as like worker wear, until now there's this added layer of this pandemic where it's like everybody's buying leisure wear and everybody's just being at home, except for, you know, the essential workers who are there to go to the grocery store or to like, or have to work or need to, you know, people who are running the subway or whatever job that you have that you unfortunately, like, you can't work from home. So the people who are privileged, and I think that the house coat under this context has this whole other thing to it. So I'm kind of working out those ideas.
Yeah, I can understand those ideas. They're very compelling, again, in multiples, that in a installation of a closet, as you mentioned, would offer the viewer a lot of excitement and interest in relationship to the personalities of the house coats.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, that's what I'm excited about right now.
Yeah, that's well, that's definitely something to work on. I'm also interested in knowing, like, do you have anything in store? You got the Queen's Grants Queen's Arts Grant from the
Yeah.
Queen's Council Arts Grant, and then you and then potentially Gloria's. You had just shown with Gloria's the Guns 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 show at Spring Break, which was claimed and did very, very well. It was one of the last fairs folks were able to enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got, do you have anything else roundabout?
Yeah, there's a show about to open at, I'm looking at my board right now because I have them all written on a board. The Pensacola Museum of Art in Florida. There's a show there. It's actually all on humor and art, humor and contemporary art. It's exciting. There's this show at Brandeis University outside of Boston, and that it's technically opened virtually right now, and then they were gonna open it to the public. Now I think they're just opening it to Brandeis students. Anyway, I have a show at Alabama Contemporary in Mobile, Alabama. It's a group show that's I think they're still trying to figure, they're like, the curator was like, listen, we could ship your work down here, we could put it up, not a lot of people are going to see it, or we could like come up with a new idea of how to use your work in this like virtual way, but how to engage people more. Actually, I thought about you because I was like, because I know that you like to cuddle and like sleep with your gun. I was like, what if there's like people sleeping with these guns, like videos of it? I don't know. We're figuring that out, or I don't know what will happen. And then I have
taken my gun on the plane as like my that was crazy. Like, you had to put it through the TSA.
That's amazing.
It was a lifesaver.
That's hilarious. I love it. And then I'm in a show actually of all artists who made flags at Standard Space in Sharon, Connecticut, and that was cool because it's part of this artist exchange. So you made a series. I made like 16 flags. You make editions, I guess, and then you get a piece from everybody in the show. So that's exciting.
That is
So you
so.
build a collection.
I have a question for you about you. You are obviously very proactive with your work and your work out there. A lot of these opportunities, they just reach out to you, and they just email you. They look at your website, they email you, and you're like, okay, let's go. I mean, yet it's impressive how many shows you still have upcoming in this state of flux, or just we don't know what the horizon line really looks like until we can, see it. But how are things changing online? Do you notice? I know you've always been very active about getting your work out there. You always update your website. You've got amazing social media practice and followers. You've got enough press that folks still keep hearing about you through Google searches and otherwise. But have you found, you know, like online marketplaces like Artfare, or I know you've been engaged with a couple others, are people buying? Are folks still interested without seeing the work or touching the work?
Yeah, especially in the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of people, I think that they were worried about, you know, people whose income stream is from people seeing work. And so people were very supportive of artists, I think, in the beginning of this pandemic, which is very, and still continue to be, which is very nice. And Art Fair is wonderful because they like gave 100% of the proceeds go to the artists. That was really wonderful. So yeah, people are still buying work, I think. I don't know. Yeah, I miss going to openings in person. Like I miss seeing art in person. It's hard to like engage with stuff on a screen. So I think that we're probably going through, galleries and artists are going through this kind of like, okay, how do we shift this to make it more engaging, or I don't know. I don't know what it will be like. And I think that artists are also kind of making more smaller series that are more financially uh, accessible. So
Yeah, that's true. Accessibility in the smaller works have really been uh, telltale throughout the pandemic. A lot of artists I know personally, they've absolutely shifted their, you know, $10,000 to $20,000 paintings to $500 to $1,000 drawings and small works or otherwise. And you're right, you know, the folks that can buy or support smaller galleries or artists in that way, they're reaching out, that win-win, to buy the work that they like, but also to support the artist. And so it does feel right now rather fortuitous. Even the risk of buying something online seems to have gone by the wayside. You know, it's just shifted the stigma of having work online. I remember sharing Art Fair with an advisor that I really respect, and I'm really hoping to get her on there and, you know, hustling some, you know, artists on there, show it to her clients. And she just wrote me back immediately and was like, "Oh, darling, I don't buy any art online." And I've worked with her recently.
yeah, like maybe would change our tune. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like I've bought some of artists that I admire, like little small $100 pieces and stuff, or done trades recently that I'm like, that I've like they're putting more out there, and then I get these little beautiful art pieces that I maybe wouldn't have otherwise purchased. So that's fun.
Yeah.
There's gonna be, yeah, I think it's gonna be a whole new art world,
Mm-hmm.
and the internet will play an even bigger role, maybe.
Mm-hmm. My question du jour has been, is Miami going to happen or not?
Yeah. I don't know. Probably not.
I think so.
Especially Florida, like
I know.
probably not.
Yeah. Well, I know there's a handful of virtual fairs out there. Everyone's doing things differently. Untitled's revealing with Artland something tomorrow that's, it's like a CAD drawing that you're inside the tent and you're going around to different fairs. And
Wow.
Art Aspen revealed some really dynamic content with video and sound and chat rooms, and they did a really good job with dynamic content. And then there's other fairs that are, you know, putting all the money in the pot and giving back to the artists. Like Nada was really great. And anyway, there's been some really wonderful creative solutions as nature or whatever is the mother of necessity, and that's been really exciting to see.
Yeah, totally.
The new
In a way, maybe it's like the curtain has been lifted and the artists are more present or available, like more things like this.
Right.
Like, especially in the beginning, it was a lot of, you know, Instagram live interviews or whatever. And actually, I went to you know, this person, Sean Fader, had a show, and I went to his opening, and it's like, you now, because openings are so, or they're not openings, I guess, they're by appointment viewings of a gallery show, you're able to like Sean was there, the artist, and you're able to like engage and talk to this person about their work way more than you would have at their opening. You've just been like, oh hey, good to
Right.
see you, move on to the next opening. But you actually spend more time with the work if you're able to see a show in person. So I think that's definitely a positive.
Definitely. Well, I think that there are a lot of positives. It's just a new world, and I'm really glad that you've got the support behind you, and we're so proud and happy to have you on Artfare. And it's reached 1900, so I told you I would give you a warning, but I completely forgot.
I know I think it's over time, right?
7 o'clock, and it's been wonderful talking to you and hearing more about your practice, and having you in the studio is too. So thank you. I don't know if you want to close out with anything. And
Thank you so much for doing this, and thank you, Artfare. I love.
got some goodies on there right now. You got some real nice.
I know I got to go to Artfare, did a in-person show. I guess that was a couple years ago, and I was like, ooh, that's when I first heard about it. I was like, oh, I like all these artists in here. Like, if they asked me to be on it, I would definitely say yes.
Oh, that's great. And yeah, we're over 500 now. I mean, it's growing and growing. It's fantastic. And
Awesome.
this is the last, for the fantastic audience that's still here, the last of our Thursday series for the live studio visits until September. And then we're going to come up with new artists, new programming, and otherwise, I think we're going to continue doing the interviews and stuff. So thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being here. And we will depart. You guys stay cool and stay cool now.
Thank you. Bye.